Yo, yo! Welcome back, everybody, to the writing block. If you are new to the channel, make sure you like and subscribe to join our community of writers. And if you are returning to the channel, welcome back. This is our seventh, I repeat, our seventh weekly update since starting the channel. And so I'm going to go ahead and just jump right into the statistics for the week. I will preface it by saying that I did have a very good week this week. So I did some type of writing. And full disclosure, if you didn't see last week's video, I am using my phone where I take my notes. So since our last weekly update, I did some type of writing every single day. So that was 7 writing sessions. One of those was an outline day. One of those was an editing day, and then the remaining 5 writing sessions were all writing days. And so overall, since the past weekly update, I spent 4.5 hours divided across 7 sections on my very first novel. And that was strictly devoted to writing the opening chapter as well as editing the opening chapter. In total, including the outline that I created before diving into the first chapter, I wrote a total of 4,905 words. And that outline was it was a little over 1,000 words. So if you take out the outline, for those of you that do not include the outline in your kind of words per week, that was 3,568 written words. And so I do want to jump into my goals for the week. So last week I discussed that my primary goal, because I actually got some advice from a friend as well as through a couple of YouTube videos actually that I was watching, that the best way to become a better storyteller is to actually just start telling stories. And so my first writing session last week was devoted, and it pertains to my goal. My goal was to create an outline for my first novel. And so basically what I did was I just sat down for an hour, taking this like idea that I had some random day when I was, going for a walk with my dog. Not entirely sure that it was going to work out, but I just rolled with it, and I created that 1,000 word outline. And then if you're interested in checking that out, that is down in the description below. There will be a link to my writing progress. And so if you just, or for the week, and so if you just scroll down in that Google Doc, you will see the outline. It's not 100% filled out, and that didn't really bother me much, just in the sense that I'm kind of just going to kind of discovery write and see where things go. And I'm actually already kind of finding out for myself that I am a little bit more of a discovery writer as opposed to someone who needs to stick kind of rigidly to an outline. And so that was my first goal. My second goal was then to write the first chapter of that story. I had originally planned to make it 4,000 words. My rationale there was I was going to write 25 chapters of 4,000 words, which would equate to a 100,000 book, which ChatGPT told me was about the length of a normal kind of fantasy novel. I quickly realized that that was not a really good approach. Basically what happened was I got to about 3,000 words, 2,500, and I think kind of saw things naturally coming to a close. And so instead of forcing myself to double the length of it or write another 1,500 words in that chapter, I actually just naturally let it come to a close, and I'm pretty satisfied with that decision. That also gave me time in the next writing session to actually go about and edit that chapter. I spent an hour editing the chapter. It was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. I'll talk about that and things that did not go as well as anticipated. And I was intentional about just limiting myself to that single hour because I didn't want to be somebody who's like rewriting the very first chapter of this story like 15 times and we never actually make any progress. And so, having reviewed my goals, let's get into what went well this week. So I will say, just overall, the number one thing is that I actually wrote a chapter. It was my first chapter that I've ever written in fiction. I have written a few book chapters for like some handbooks in the field of psychology, all nonfiction, sciencey type stuff. And so it was a satisfying feeling to write my first chapter, and it did feel a little bit like an accomplishment, and something that I was certainly proud of. Um, with that chapter, I will say that I did start off pretty strong. So I think having the outline, knowing where I was starting, I felt like I did strike a pretty good tone. And I was overall kind of satisfied with how the chapter began. However, as I because I was trying to stick to the outline, but then when I realized that the outline wasn't working, I got a little over my skis and I kind of lost it, I will say, a little bit. However, I was able to regroup after a difficult writing session and then ultimately pull it together. And through that process kind of realized that I think I should just trust myself in writing. And I kind of found out, right, that I may not need an outline. I might just discovery write and kind of naturally let my instincts tell me where the story is going. The other thing I'll mention is things that went well, and this was something that was totally unexpected, was I was using ChatGPT to give me feedback on my writing. I would just say, like, hey, I'd throw in what I wrote for the day, and I would basically say, I'm trying to be a better storyteller. Ignore grammar. Tell me how I can get better. Um, the feedback was like surprisingly good, almost scary good. It would even like rewrite what I wrote, and it would be like, you could tell it was good. Um, and the pleasant part about that experience was because it was so good, I was actually like using that, right? Because I originally I plugged in the edited chapter and I started to use that feedback as I moved into chapter two. And I think that it did improve the quality of my writing. And so I'm excited to go back and throw it back into ChatGPT after chapter two, and then just kind of continue to make that progress so that I am a better storyteller, all in all. In terms of some things that did not go well, I alluded to this earlier on. Oh man, the editing process, it was difficult, and I'll be honest, I enjoyed it less than actually writing, right? Even on my like writing session, that was like by far the worst or the most challenging for me. I found the editing session to be like even worse. So kind of finding out that editing is something that maybe isn't my favorite thing to do was something that I considered not to not go as well this week. I'm gonna be careful not to like judge that and like make any self rules or anything, as it could have just been that particular day. And that was an editing session that was an hour, where normally my writing sessions are 30 minutes. So maybe I can kind of break that up in the future just to kind of help with that feeling. And then the last thing I have noted here, which it's not something that like is didn't go well per se, but just something that I kind of realized is that I spent a lot of time getting that chapter together as well as editing it, and I think just realistically, I don't think I'll be able to pump out an edited chapter every week. Just because even with like the edited first chapter, which again is down in the description below, if you click on one of the links down there, um, even like with that editing session, I was going like fast because I was like, I work a 9 to 5, so I was kind of trying to get things done so I can move on to the next thing, next part of my day. And so I think if I instead just focus on writing, incorporating the feedback from ChatGPT, and just like keep going and worry about editing on the back end, that's going to be something that's going to set myself up for success going forward, knowing that there's absolutely no way I'm going to be able to write a 3,000 word chapter and then also go back and edit it for an hour, hour and a half every week, and be satisfied with the final product, right? I feel like it'll even be more meaningful to edit those chapters once I'm like at chapter 15 and I'm naturally like, one, I have a better idea of where my story is going, and two, I'm hopefully just a better writer because I've had a lot more practice. And so that's one thing to note. And so that kind of leads me into the last section of this week's updates, which is my goals for next week. So I'm going to try to continue to ride the wave, and I'm going to try and get chapter 2 finished by our next weekly update. And of course, there's some flexibility in that goal. If something happens where all of a sudden I'm writing and I'm like, oh, wait, this chapter needs to be like double length than I thought it needed to be, right? I'm anticipating it'll be anywhere from, 2,000 to 4,000 words, 4,000 on the long end, 2,000 if it's a particularly short chapter. Um, and that's just kind of the range that I'm going to shoot for. And again, let my instincts kind of guide when a particular chapter is closing up, and not, force myself to hit X word amount and then just move on, right? If it ends up that chapter 2 is, 1,000 words, I'm not saying it will be, then I'll just move on to chapter 3. And so that's kind of my focus for this upcoming week. And then last but not least, I'm going to continue, right? My next goal for this week is to continue to use ChatGPT. If you haven't tried it, I would highly encourage you all to try it. It like pointed out, like, this is info dumping. Here's a way you can say the same thing without info dumping. It noticed like pacing issues, and gave you tips on like how to improve the pace. Dialogue, it was giving me tips on that. And so I don't know if I'll do it after every writing session, but for sure after I finish chapter 2, I'm going to definitely throw it in there and kind of and write down the feedback it gives me, and then I'm going to be posting that kind of at the top for like my goals for the day. And that's something that I did do today, where I was like, it gave me feedback from chapter 1, and so when I was starting chapter 2, I was like, okay, I need to write a better hook, and then I can't remember the other thing that it told me. Hmm. Anyway, oh, showing, not telling, right? So don't just info dump on folks. And so those were my focus, those were my foci. I don't know if that's the plural world of focus, going into the start of chapter 2. And I think it actually went a long way in terms of improving the chapter, and I was super satisfied with it. And so those are going to be my 2 goals for the week. If you have any goals for the upcoming week, please throw them down in the comments section below. I would love to hear from y'all, just to kind of help create that community where we can all hold ourselves accountable. And so with that being said, happy writing, y'all.